Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the Pleasure Points podcast. I'm your host, James Rohr. I'm an acupuncturist, coach, business owner, entrepreneur, all the things out here trying to live my best life down in Miami Beach. Actually, not Miami Beach. I'm glad not to be on Miami Beach as much. I'm over at Key Biscayne, which is like way quieter part of Miami. And now I understand why the residents that are here always talk about how much they hate leaving the Key because it's just so nice back here. But don't tell anybody else. But if you want to come down here, come visit us over on the Key. So this is the Pleasure Points podcast. I'm excited to have you here. Today's episode, I'm going to share some stuff that I've been thinking about and working on with this incredible book that I've been reading, where we're going to talk a lot about pride and how to transform feelings of pride into feeling better. And I think that this stuff, when I was reading the book and, going through this stuff and referencing it with some things that happened earlier in my life, it just completely blew my mind. And all of this stuff started to kind of come together, these different threads of thought. And it's really helped me to feel so much more free and grounded and humble and more like proactive, able to generate the mood that I want instead of being so reactive. And so if you're in a relationship or if you're single, the stuff that we're talking about today is going to be, I think, tremendously helpful for you. So thank you, as always, for being here. If you're interested in seeing more about my coaching work, you can go my coaching work. In the episode, I talk a lot about this is like, wow, it's amazing. This shit is so insidious. If you're interested in seeing the coaching work that I do, you can check that out at invitinginlove.com. And we've got Instagram at James E. Rohr, and you can email the show here at pleasurepointspodcast@gmail.com. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Thank you so much, and enjoy the show. Hey, what's happening? Happy to be here with you today. I missed last week because I was busy getting married. So Jen and I got married, and I'm going to have her come on in an episode here upcoming, and we will talk all about the nuptials. And it was so special, and it was amazing. It was a very small ceremony. It was Wyatt and her parents, and a friend of ours married us on the beach. And man, it was so beautiful and tremendous, and just that energy that seems to open up when we make declarations. We make a commitment to somebody and to ourselves, and speaking that and having other people hear it and know what you're committing to is it just changes. It seems to just change energy. I don't know how it works, but yeah, it just feels great. And we've been enjoying the early stages of marriage life, and those of you that listen to our adventures in cohabitation seem to have a lot of feedback, mostly about how I'm a moron when it comes to decorating, and how you can empathize with her desire for pillows. I also it was fun to hear from you guys about your experience with Tushy and the bidets. Those of you that have them are all welcoming me into the civilized world. And it's like each of us is almost literally sitting on a little slice of heaven. And people don't talk about it very much. And those of you that don't have one yet, well, you just don't even know. It'd be like listening to someone describe ice cream. And if you've never had it before, you'd be like, yeah, I don't know. There's no frame of reference there. But if you enjoy having a clean butt, Tushy's the way to go. Tushy, if you're listening to this, I'm available for sponsorships. I'll do it for cheap. I love your product. Anyway, I didn't come on here to talk about all the Tushy stuff, but what I did want to talk about was I've been reading this book. I think I mentioned it a little while ago. I'm still making my way through it, called Letting Go by this author, David Hawkins, which is funny that he's got that name because one of my most instrumental influences in my life when I was younger was an English teacher that I had in high school, and his name was David Hawkins. And he was just absolutely tremendous as a resource to, he was open and was encouraging of my spiritual stuff and the sensing of the energies and all of that. And he also ignited in me this love and appreciation for poetry, especially Walt Whitman was a big one for me at the time. Gary Snyder was somebody that I've read a lot of as well. And it's hard for me to imagine having any of kind of the literature or even sort of artistic and just human sensibilities that I have if it wasn't for the David Hawkins, who was my teacher. And so now I'm reading this book by this other David Hawkins called Letting Go. And he talks in there about some of the research that he's done on what he calls the hierarchy of emotions. And what he does is he has identified a bunch of different emotions, and he's put them on a graph, on a scale of what I would say is sort of the disempowering to the most empowering. And so for the disempowering ones, we're talking about things like shame is at the very, very bottom, right? It's just like shame is such an oppressive, disempowering, weakening energy. You know, it's like if you imagine yourself on a lifeboat, when shame comes in, it's just like it completely blows a giant hole in the lifeboat. Slightly less intense than that is guilt. And then we're moving up. We've got apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, and pride. And these are all what he calls like reactive emotions. These are all things that we are responding to other people and the events that are happening around us. And when we are stuck in a reactive place instead of a proactive place, there's a loss of energy in the body. There's a weakness that happens, you know. And thinking about acupuncture and even coaching and stuff in this way, it's about shifting and healing the body and opening things up, right? So that we're shifting from this reactive state into a more empowering state. And so just above pride is courage. And courage is going to be what is this tipping point where we can begin to shift from being in a reactive state and getting into a much more proactive state. And everything above courage are like the things that we like to feel, you know? So we've got being neutral, being willing, accepting, reasoning, like an understanding, love, joy, peace, and then the highest of his scale is enlightenment. But what I want to talk about is pride, because this is something that I've been meditating a lot on. It's something I've been thinking a lot about. And like he said something, there's like a paragraph in this book, in the section about pride, that was like almost word for word something that I had been taught a few years ago that I still think about like all of the fucking time. And so what happened was when I was going through my divorce, I reached out to a friend of mine, and I was just bitching. I was complaining. I was frustrated. I was really scared. I was overwhelmed. I was uncertain. You know, the energy of like, do you stay? Do you go? And then the unraveling of things is just so intense. And so I reached out to her, and I was just kind of complaining. You know, I wasn't in a good state. I was just bitching. And I kept saying things like, you know, my wife or my ex-wife or my soon-to-be ex-wife. And, you know, I was talking about like my money, and what else was I complaining about? You know, like my son, and just like all of these things, right? And she interrupted me, and she said, stop using my. She's like, she's not yours. She was never your wife. She was never your ex-wife, right? She's who she is. She's a woman. She's Alex. That's who she is. Like, she's not yours. And she goes, and my friend continued, and she goes, and it's not your money. She goes, you know, you like to think that it's your money, but it's not your money. Like, you do things and you earn it and it comes to you. You can't take it with you when you're dead. It's not yours. You have temporary access to it, you know, and it belongs to the universe. It's like, you know, we've created this thing, but it's not actually yours. And, you know, with your son, it's like, it's not your son. He's him. He's a human being. He's his own person. You just have the privilege of caring for him and of being able to nurture him. And there's some responsibilities that come with that. But she was like, really, she's like, just stop. She's German, right? She's like, stop using the my. Like, stop it. It's getting in your way. And I was really reactive. I didn't understand like what she was talking about. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. I was like, listen, if you're at a party, right, and you're there with your husband, and you guys are in separate parts of the room, and you're telling a story that references him, like, you're saying that you don't say like, oh, my husband and I did this. And she was like, no, I don't. I was like, well, what the hell do you call him then? She's like, she goes, I say his name, Jeff. I say, Jeff and I did this. Jeff and I rode horses. Jeff and I went here. He's not my partner. He's not my husband. She's like, yeah, we're married. We have like the agreement in place. but I can't think of him as mine. And this, like, I remember sitting back when I had that conversation with her, and I was just like, this, like, what? Like, come on. Like, okay, I know we got to be good with language, but like, holy shit. Like, this is really getting detailed and sticky, and, you know, it's intense. And I sat there and I thought about it. And, you know, it must have been like, I don't know, a year, 2 years maybe, where it finally occurred to me, like the way I was able to kind of associate with it and understand it and recognize part of why I think it was so sticky, or, you know, why it's so an important distinction, is because oftentimes, you know, when, especially in relationships, when we start thinking about my partner, my wife, we lose that distinction that they are their own person. We start to lose that sense of awe and curiosity and wonder and the privilege, really, of being with this person. This person has chosen to still stay in the same house with you, or to wake up next to you, or choose to talk to you, and like all those things. And when it becomes like a my, we tend to start treating people like we treat ourselves. And most of the time we don't treat ourselves nearly as well as we treat like strangers. And it also like leads to all these sort of expectations of like, well, I would never do it this way. And so when it's like, well, you know, how could my wife do this to me? Or how could my wife behave this way? Or maybe for those of you that are single, it's easier to think about like, you know, the difference between your parent, or like a parent, versus your parent, right? You're going to probably be way more forgiving about your friend's father than you would be about your own father or your own mother. But it's that addition to the my that just comes loaded with all sorts of expectations and the beliefs and like all of this stuff, right? And it also, like, the lines blur because we start to just see everything as an extension of ourselves. That's where Esther Perel, you know, she says that the two times that we tend to be the most attracted to our partners and spouses are, one, when we see them doing their thing, right? If they're like arguing a case in front of a jury, if they're on stage performing, if they're in their kind of zone of genius and in their arena, right? When we see them do that thing, that turns us on. And then if the other one is, you know, if after a trip or after you haven't seen them for a while and you get reconnected again. And both of those, to me, like, fall right in line with this idea of like using the my, because both of those things are reminders that they aren't an extension of us. They just are who they are. You know, so it's like, I vow to accept you as you are and to see you who you are from a place of like curiosity and wonder, and to not make you an extension of me. You know, and so when someone's like performing, or when they're doing their thing that you can't do, and they're clearly good at it, right? That's going to turn us on. There's going to be some attraction there, because it's like, wow, that's right. They are their own person. They were somebody before you met them. And if you break up or if you die before they do, they're going to be somebody after you. So not everything is always done in relationship to us. So anyway, so this was how I was thinking about it. And I've been trying to be really mindful of when I use that language, you know, and even setting out like the wedding announcements, or sending out the things of like, oh, this is my wife, or this is my husband, you know, or we're introducing each other. There's like something that is appealing there to be able to do that. You know, there's that sense of ownership or partnership, or of a commitment. And when we say my and yours, there's like this thing that's there. And it was in reading this David Hawkins book, Letting Go, that I realized that, you know, he spelled it out what it is, and it's pride, right? It's that proud feeling of like, this is my wife, or this is my husband, this is my partner, this is my kid, this is my bank account, this is my work. And there's pride in that ownership of the my. And I've been thinking about this since the woman told me this like 5 years ago, but when he said it, it was like a 2x4 hit me over the head. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is the thing. That's right. It all is coming back to this feeling of pride. And pride on his scale is a disempowering like energy. It's a disempowering emotion. because it still has us in a reactive place. Like when it comes to like feeling good and having self-esteem and self-confidence, it's like what he says is we have to let go of pride in order for real self-love to show up. Because you don't want your sense of who you are to be tied to external circumstances. Right? What if she's no longer my wife? What if I'm no longer her husband? What if my money or my bank account or my house isn't the thing anymore? What if that changes? Because it will change. If we're constantly just trying to feel proud, it becomes a really slippery slope. And I like hearing that just kind of like, it like leveled me. I was like, I noticed I took a deep breath and I was like, ooh, because I grew up with somebody, especially my father, right? Who like, he's a proud man and he's worked very, very hard and he has a lot to be proud of. But in meditating on this and reading the book about it, it's just like, I can see the limitations for that. And I'd never really like dove fully into that. But what Hawkins says, he has a whole paragraph where he says basically what my friend told me, which was like, one way to start shifting pride or to become aware of the kind of the attachments that we have to feeling proud and our attachment to things is to notice all the times that you say my, and to start changing that. So instead of, my partner, it's Jennifer, or instead of my money, it's just money. Instead of my house, it's like, this is the house. And, I think that, I'm certainly not perfect at this by any stretch. And sometimes it feels a little clunky. It's almost like for me, like my brain can't quite make that transition because I'm just so used to possessives. One of the episodes that's gotten the most feedback from you guys is when I talked about that experience with Wyatt on the beach, where he just wanted to like pick up a stone from the beach and take it with him. And I told him, we have to ask for permission. It's not your stone just because you pick it up, right? The stone is the stone. Yeah, it's part of this whole fabric, but it's got its own consciousness. I believe it has its own kind of feeling system and its own awareness and its own place in things. And if we just start grabbing things and claiming them as ours, we're not free anymore. We become beholden to like the stuff or the feelings that our things give us, or the feelings that our relationship to others by claiming my and mine give us. It gets weird. It gets ultimately it keeps us in a state of being a bit reactive or defined by the things that are around us instead of the things that we're internally generating. I just thought this was awesome. I thought it was so amazing. And I was reminded of this last night because Jen and I went to one of these like prayer circles, these healing ceremony things. And there was like ecstatic dance and yoga and all this stuff. And one of the things that I was taught when I was younger was that one of the places where we tend to lose a lot of energy in our system are the things that really trip us up, or when we believe that we have rights and we want to stick up for them. We feel, perhaps entitled to things being a certain way, and, or we have a belief and we think that everybody else should have that belief. And, it's like a little kid who's like, no, I should stay up till 9 o'clock. I have a right to stay up till 9 o'clock, and is going to just keep like fighting and arguing and demanding that they get their way. All right. This is one of the kind of traps that we can fall into when we're not feeling good, or if we're not feeling in total alignment, is that we feel entitled to things. And really at the core of that entitlement, I think, is this: we can look at the language of this idea of my and mine. It's my belief, it's my thing, it's my prayer, which is what reminded me of this last night. Is because I have I should probably wait to tell this part when Jen is here, because it's probably just gonna make me sound like even more of an asshole. But it's like I observe myself getting really impatient and annoyed at some prayer circles, because a lot of times it just reminds me of like a Senate hearing, where people just kind of want to hear themselves talk. And this happened a little bit last night, and I was thinking about it in terms of this idea of pride and this ownership over beliefs and how we can feel so good about the beliefs that we have, right? I'm aware that like the irony that I feel good about having a belief that, that the way I pray is better or whatever, but I like, I'm just examining, I'm thinking, I'm looking at these things and I'm wondering all the time. And this person was saying all these prayers. She was, she was praying for this and that and the other. And the way I was hearing it was like, oh, this woman seems to think that she knows all of the ways that like people should be living. And she's putting that out in the world in terms of prayers for those people or prayers for that world. I pray that this person feels better, and I pray that, the oceans are healed, and I pray that the climate gets better, and I pray that, our politicians make the right decisions, and I pray that this is this and this is that and the other things and all these things. And it just sort of struck me that underneath that was this kind of pride of her beliefs. Especially if you've ever been to the like prayer circles where people go on and on and on and they try to like one up each other with their prayers. Like this is no joke. Years ago, I was at this prayer circle. It was a peyote ceremony. It was this energy thing, and this plant medicine ceremony. And I was like at the end of the circle. I don't know, maybe there were 20 people there, and the guy that was facilitating, the husband and wife that were facilitating, they were like, okay, we're gonna go around the circle so that everybody can say their prayers out loud. And I just I cringed because I was impatient and was uncomfortable with like how much time it was going to take. But it's not, you go to spend enough time in these things and you just know that it's like, oh, this is like people want to hear themselves talk. Yeah, the irony that I've got the podcast and I'm bitching about it. I see it. I'm not perfect. Somewhere there's something here to be illuminated. And so the first person went and, they were praying for their dog and this and that and whatever. And then they were like, and we have to pray for our schools, right? And the kids in the schools, right? It sounds nice. Of course, send love to the schools. Got it. Great. Then the next person goes and she says all of her things. And then she was like, yeah, we have to pray for our schools and we have to pray for our teachers who are teaching the kids in the school. And I was like, okay, like, yeah, teachers need love too. I know a lot of teachers, like, pray for the teachers. All right, cool. I'm into it. And the next person goes and they have all of their prayers for their community and all the things. And they said, we have to pray for our schools. We have to pray for the teachers, but we also have to pray for the people writing the textbooks so that they put the good information in the textbooks that are going to be taught in the schools. And like at that point, I couldn't handle it anymore. I started laughing. And it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, we want the textbooks, we want good information there. But at the same time, it's like, who is to decide like what the good information is? Clearly the people that are putting it in there, I would assume, think that they're doing the appropriate thing. I just like to assume that people think, assume that people are doing what they think is best. And so now all of a sudden it's like, well, who are we to say what's best? And this is something that like I think about all of the time. And I don't know I don't know the right way with this one. I don't know what's best here because the way that I was an anthropology major. So we take a look at, other cultures and this whole cultural relativism of like, who's to say one culture is better? Who's to insist that, we know how other people should be living and that one way is right or wrong and all that stuff. And that's something that is really ingrained in me. And it was even affirmed in the way that I was taught about ceremony. And that one of the most like beautiful ceremonies that I've ever been able to participate in is what's called the Humblecha, a vision quest. And the way that I experienced it, the way that it was shown to me was that, we would have part of the way it goes down is you have your chanupa, which is like a pipe, it's a prayer pipe. It's a sacred object. Think about it as something that you care a lot about, especially if it can be a conduit to your higher self or to the universe or to God. For some of you, maybe it's a crucifix and, anything that you find to be very sacred and that is recognized as when you are holding it, when you're using it, it is a tool, it is a sacred gift, it is a connection to the divine. And one of the things that was the most beautiful when it was shown to me was when the person who's going out for their vision quest, when they are walking out to their site, they carry their chanupa, they carry their prayer pipe. they carry their prayers out there. And the person that was facilitating this whole ceremony made it very clear. He said, nobody is to get in front of this person in the procession to their site. All right, their site has been chosen, and they are going to walk with their chanupa in their hands. And they're going to be offering that chanupa to Creator, offering their prayers to the universe as they make their way to their site. And we need to be really mindful of not getting in their way between their prayers, their chanupa, and the Creator. And like with so many of these ceremonies, right, it's just sort of like physical representation of this larger energy. And, so by not walking in front of that person, emotionally, if we, take a look at that, or spiritually, what we're really saying is like, we don't know what somebody needs. We don't know. So who am I to say what somebody needs? And this podcast and my coaching, all the things, they're just suggestions. We're just talking about ideas. I'm sharing, things that I've encountered, things that I'm thinking about. And, if you get something from it, awesome. Try out the ideas. I don't know the right way. This is just, I'm fumbling through all of this stuff. And so, but I love that idea of like, I'm not going to stand in front of somebody's chanupa. I'm not going to get in the way there. So if they have their prayers, they have their prayers. But we might talk about it. There might be another way to do it, but it's like when we pray for somebody to feel better. And I remember when I used to be really sick, I remember this one time, it was like I'm not proud of this at all in my life, but I remember I snapped at my mom because she goes, I just want you to feel better. And she goes, I pray like all the time for you to feel better. And she's my mom. Like, now I have a whole other perspective on it. But at the time I was just angry. I was scared and I was hurt. I wasn't feeling good. And I snapped and I was just like, it's like, I doing everything I can to feel better. I'm trying to feel better, but it's not happening. And maybe I'm sick for a reason, And so I was like, if you keep praying for me to feel better, I might miss the reason as to why I'm sick. And that, listen, that wasn't cool. Like, I didn't have the compassion with my mom that she deserved. She was seeing her kids suffer, and that sucks. It's hard. It's hard to see other people suffering. And yet I still come back to this thing of like, I don't know why someone has that. I don't know why they're suffering. But perhaps there's a larger reason. Perhaps in their karma, in their chosen manifestation, perhaps this is exactly where that person needs to be. And so, if I would just pray for somebody to find a relationship, or I pray for them to heal or feel better, or if I pray for them to have that deal close, I don't know. I don't know what that might change in their karma. What karmic healing or soul healing or other great things might that fulfilled wish prevent them from? And so I don't know. And so, this kind of like messed me up when I was practicing too, because, people would come in and I'd be like, oh, I want your headache to go away. Yeah. And it was like very focused. And then when I started learning about these other things and not walking in front of someone and not getting in between them and their chanupa and their healing, and their prayers, I had to shift it. I started to shift it, where now what I really just focus on is like, I'm just going to send love to people. I'm going to send this higher energy of love, of joy, of peace, and just send them kind of, it's like the hippies and stuff. We'll talk about sending the light, So we'll send the light. We'll send those good vibes out. And then I just trust their energy field to do with that whatever it needs to do. Because maybe they don't need to heal right now. Maybe that's not what needs to happen. But if I could send them a little bit more love, and it helps them to endure, helps them to feel not so alone, right? That might be everything that they need right now. Or, sometimes even just reaching out and making a phone call or a text message, checking in, is better than just sitting in a prayer circle and being like, I pray that they feel better. Well, let's reach out to them, connect, let's love. So I've been thinking a lot about It's always on my mind. And like, so with my client stuff, I would just be like, no, I send you love, and you've hired me or you've come to me because, you want help with your health. You want help with self-confidence. You want help attracting a partner. You need a new strategy. You're looking to decide whether you should stay in your relationship or get out of it. And you're afraid of making the same mistakes. So there's fear and you want to transform. You know that your inner state of being is not healthy, that you're not seeing things as clearly as you can, that you're that person who you want to be isn't fully expressing. And you've got some blind spots. We all do. And so you're reaching out for some support. But rather than me being super specific about what it is, I'm going to just send you a lot of love. And if you're my client, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to like walk with you and be in the trenches and be on the mountaintops and celebrate with you. And, I'm there. But the actual prayer is for love. It's for energy. And I might also say, I'll be like, and I'll be like, I'm going to send love to this person. And they have also come to me because they're hurting and they want to find a partner, or they want clarity about whether to stay or to go, or they have chronic headaches, or whatever else it is. I'll be like, and so this is what their prayer is. And I don't know if the healing for that is what's best for them right now, but it sounds like they could use some love and some balancing. And that's not so powerful. I mean, it's incredibly powerful. I think that's the best way, but it's not like affirming to an ego, right? It's incredibly humbling. And in like circling back to this idea of pride and looking at pride as this thing, like seeing pride on his chart of still being in a reactive state was like so eye-opening to me. I'm a Leo. And I'm a 3 in the Enneagram. So like, I like to be proud. I like to be awesome. I like to celebrate that stuff. But now I'm becoming really mindful of when I might be saying, my thing, even my podcast, my show. It's not my show. I have an opportunity to sit here and I have a mic and the recording stuff and whatever. And, I've been blessed with words and the health to be able to sit here and to do this and to share it. And the desire to, keep recording and, you guys listen, which is awesome. So thankful for that. And it's all of our show. You write in, you tell me what's going on, what's coming up for you. What do you like? What don't you like? And so we're just like in this constant process. But the more I can detach from this ownership of it helps to put me back into a state of flow. And even like my prayers, my thoughts, my wishes for the earth and for the people. I want to be really hyper vigilant of, is this contributing to an ego? Is this contributing to a reactive state? Do I want to be able to look back and be like, my prayers were answered? Or can I just say, I really felt in the flow and in alignment. I just offered a ton of love. So if I were to like redo it, I would just be like, I'm going to send love to the teachers, to the textbooks, to the system. I'm going to send love to the planet and to the oceans. I'm going to send love to, my friends and my family and all that. And I'm going to be really mindful, right? Again, of these 3 amplifiers. I'm going to be really mindful of what I'm feeling, what I'm speaking, and most importantly in this case, the actions that I take. That's the problem with the love and light stuff. You send love and light all you want, but what are you doing? Are we still using single-serve plastic things? Are we still driving the gas-guzzling cars? Are we still doing that stuff? I still do some of that stuff. But I'm working on it. Becoming more and more mindful, making more and more decisions as I continue to peel back the layers just to say, okay, what's in more alignment for me? And it's all an experiment. But circling back around to this idea of pride and of letting go of that ownership, try it out. Let me know how it goes for you. If you've heard this before, if you've been doing this for a while, let me know what you found, what you've discovered along the way. I'd love to hear from you. And as I see it, like, especially in this new relationship that I have, or this new phase of the relationship with Jen, I really want to be extra mindful of not fucking it up. Of continuing to keep that spark there and to be curious and to not fall into that trap of just seeing her as an extension of me. And that anytime things don't go the way that I think that they should, to just be like, oh, this is a great reminder that she is her own woman. And isn't that amazing? And she's a beautiful woman who chooses to put up with my shit. Instead of being like, well, why didn't she put the rest of the dishes away? Or why didn't you do this and that? All the sort of the trap that we can get into with cohabitation and having a relationship with someone for a long time. So, keep your eye this week on where are the places where you strive to feel proud. Where are those things where you might, claim to possess something, where you celebrate yourself from a place of like judging yourself or comparing yourself in relation to others, or even needing the accomplishments to feel good? And is there a way for you to let go of that, right? If you were able to realize that you are a child of God, or that we're all in this together, or that who you are isn't dependent upon your accomplishments, is there a way where you can transform that to get into a more proactive state where you're generating feelings of love and kindness? And if you've found yourself praying for specific things, especially specific things for other people, I would love if you did an experiment this week where you just think about sending them love instead. Where we say, okay, I don't really know what somebody needs. I hear what they're struggling with. I hear why they think they're suffering. But I don't really know what they need. So I'm going to just send them love. I'm going to send them, a little extra dose of some love and some, joy and compassion. And notice if that feels different for you. I'd love to hear how that goes. Because especially when it comes to our partners as well, it's so easy, right, to fall in a trap of like, well, they need to do this and they should be like this and they should do that. Blah, 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 blah. But perhaps that's because we're referring to them as our partners, as opposed to like, there's a human being who's having her own experience or his own experience, and they're doing whatever they want to do. Why? The question really becomes, why am I letting their actions impact me in such a way? Especially if it's someone that I love and I care about. Divorcing myself, separating myself from that sense of ownership from that person, of that my quality to it, and changing those qualifiers that we use with our language. It might dramatically shift things for you. I'm experimenting with it. And so far the results have been like completely eye-opening and humbling at how much I've sort of yearned for pride and yearned for that kind of the apparent adulation that can come with that, which is just all bullshit. It's a house of cards. But to the ego, it seems very real and necessary. But perhaps there isn't. And remember that the pivot point, the fulcrum, to go from the disempowering parts of the emotional state into the more empowering are courage. And so just even having the courage to look at some of these things already changes your energy field. It's already going to help to plug some of those energetic leaks and holes that you might have had. So I can't wait to hear from you guys. Thank you, as always, for listening. You can check out the coaching work at invitinginlove.com. You can follow me on Instagram at James E. Rohr. You can follow Jennifer at Jennifer Panza. Both of those are on Instagram. And you can email the show at pleasurepointspodcast@gmail.com. So thank you, as always, for being here. Have a fantastic week, and I'll catch you guys next time.